Alrighty, episode number 5 of West Coast Wednesday. It is going to be very brief because, as I mentioned last week, I have an announcement as it pertains to some open wheel entity that'll be heading the West Coast, and follow-up notes that I found out throughout the NBCSN telecast that wasn't shown on the fanschoice.tv live stream. So without further ado, let's talk about the aforementioned live stream. As I mentioned last episode, the problem that I had was there was instances where they didn't show what truly happened. Of course, it's live. They have a replay team, but that's on the NBCSN side for the tape delay coverage, which explains why I was super critical on the live stream because they missed the battle for the lead, the final lead chase when Trevor Huddleston got by Derek Kraus, and then later on Tanner Gray in less than a lap. So here is what happened in that aforementioned final lead change. Turns out, based on the NBCSN telecast, that Derek Kraus got loose. He got high, and that's how Huddleston got by. It's straight and simple. The reason why you should watch the tape delayed coverage that NBC puts on. And this race at Irwindale was so essential that you had to watch the NBCSN to fully understand what happened. It's just a tough break for Kraus. It literally was. It's like what happened at Vegas. But this time around, he finished in the top 3 compared to Vegas, where he was completely non-factor in the closing last once he lost the lead. And then as far as the Joey Tanner, he lost it completely on his own. He went up high, and there was a little bit of a scrape on his right rear bumper. It was a bad night for the rookie out of the Jefferson Pitts camp. Cole Cabrera, on the other hand, had a standout race in the 27th, as you saw the final result. He had a pretty good showing. It will be very interesting to see how he does going forward whenever he shows up again. For a dirt track ace like Joey Tanner, of course, Vegas was his best showing. On the pavement, it's a different story. I'd like to see more how he does on the pavement going forward of the races he may run. Now, the whole thing with Tanner Gray and Hailie Deegan, before we transition to how Deegan did at Bristol along with Brittany Samora and Kraus. That was completely on her. She bottomed out in the bottom groove. When I mentioned some people felt like that Gray might have turned her around, that was totally not the case in this one. She went low, it bottomed out, she got loose, completely lost it. She might have made contact and may have used a buffering on Tanner Gray's number 15 car, but that was all a single car incident. Nobody turned anybody, it was just a single car spin. That was exactly what happened with Joey Tanner, is all on her own. That's all I got for the West Coast side of things as far as follow-ups from what happened in Irwindale. Now let's move on how the Bill McAnally team fared in the East race at Bristol, the Sambiato 150. It was an absolute clinic by Sam Mayer from the GMS camp. Sam Mayer led the whole thing. It's just complete domination on his part. We'll see how he does going forward. But this brings up an interesting question that Auto Week pointed out. Derek Kraus, if I recall, he is 2 points behind in the championship trail on the east side. And they were skeptical, and there were hints of whether or not Kraus will either go for an east or a west championship, or the possibility of both. There's a good chance he could go to become the undisputed champion. But that was all in case if the third round he was the championship leader, because remember, Kraus won in New Smyrna. He's now in a pretty interesting championship battle on the east side. So it'll be interesting what he'll do going forward. Because if he really wants to go for the east schedule, that's going to put a full plate on his lineup. You have his full commitment in the west. You have his part-time truck series deal. And then you have east. And now, this is not considered in the combo races at Iowa Gateway, by the way. Decisions indeed. Because Noah Gragson was in a situation where it was a detriment once he chose a series. And then they completely abolished that whole rule. But now, going into 2019, there's a decent chance he could be fighting for the undisputed championship on the K&N side. But I would assume he'll be going for the West title. And I think that would be a likewise decision to go for. But if he wants to try the East as well, that's entirely up to him, because he's pretty much the only driver that's proven he can compete with the East on a consistent basis. Look at Loudon. He pretty much had a really good race. He could have probably won it. And then later in the going, Brandon McReynolds came along and pretty much took the win, and a big one as that. McReynolds is another one that could be running full-time East. It's just a matter of sponsorship and the Visconti Motorsports team allowing him to go for the title. And I say, for a former West driver and a former McAnally guy, no doubt I'll be keeping an eye how McReynolds does for the remaining of the season. McReynolds drove for the 16 a couple years ago before Todd Gilliland took over and just run rush shots all over the entire West Coast schedule and competitors. And with that being said, Derek Kraus finished 6th. He was the highest of the West Coast drivers. Brittany Samora got 11th, and 16th was Hailie Deegan. Deegan had a really frustrating week at the last Great Coliseum. It was a rough going. He was in a compelling and interesting battle with Samora for important track position. They were right up in the top 10 running order, and then Deegan pitted, and then they got the hood up, and then it was over. She finished 16th. They were not the only female drivers in that lineup. There was also Natalie Decker, whose afternoon didn't really got going because she was involved in that opening lap fiasco. I'd rather not discuss it because I have pretty much very extreme critical opinions as far as that comment when it pertains to whether or not Riley Hurts is that's such a word, and also just on how etiquette journalism works. But with that being said, she lost her motor in practice on the day before on Friday. Kevin Reed Jr., her crew chief, got ejected. It was definitely a weekend to forget indeed. No doubt about it. And that's the thing going forward. The East races are going to be the ultimate test for her. Not just ARCA when she runs. I say the East because I feel like she needs to show her worth on the East side because Bill McAnally is the only team that really does do some occasional East races. And I applaud them. I can totally understand why Bob Brucati would never try East races, the standalones, because I think it's mostly for sponsorships or they're just 100% dedicated on making themselves being the team of the West. And it has worked in their cause. Look at last year. They took the top 2 championship standings, and they could be on the hunt possibly as well, depending how Huddleston fares and whether or not Jones can continue, Jagger Jones to be exact, can carry the momentum he has so far because he's going to be in that Rookie of the Year battle, and he could not only do that, he can win the championship. I believe that could be done. Speaking of the East, here is the championship standings real quick. Sam Mayer leads Derek Kraus by 3 points. Brandon McReynolds is 6 behind. And as far as Tanner Gray, who will be running the East the entire time, he's tied in 9th in points with Mason Diaz. Brittany Zamora is 13th, Hailie Deegan 15th in the championship standings. But Tucson will be the ultimate test. It will be the Port of Tucson's 100, 2 races, a doubleheader on May 11th. Don't forget it, will be on fanshows.tv. So that's all I got from K&N's side, to be brutally honest. It was going to be a very short episode because that's what follows are. They're going to be short and brief. So with that being said, the big announcement that I mentioned about Open Wheels is that I'll be heading to Long Beach, California to do a lot of stuff for Motorsports Review as it pertains to the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach, the IndyCar race. And I know West Coast Wednesday is dedicated to K&N West things, K&N West everything. Even when the West drivers move east to do the standalone races, I will discuss about it, or even trucks, or talk about alumni. For this one, it's going to be a special one, but it's not going to be similar to what I've done so far, showing highlight packages. I will discuss how the week went, how the race unfolded, and also probably discuss other things during that time because I'll be heading to Southern California. When you're hearing it, I'm on my way to Long Beach to do IndyCar stuff. There's also IMSA Stadium Super Trucks, historic IMSA GTO, Motegi Super Drift. There's one video on Formula Drift Facebook page that you need to see. You may think it's a video game, but it's not a video game. You got to see it a couple times to realize that this is not a video game. This is actually high quality, pristine footage. And alright, and I'll talk about Super Drifts and all that. And also the GT4 America will be running. A lot of stuff that will be happening in Long Beach, and for sure, on the next episode, I will discuss what went down in the streets of Southern California. So in the meantime, I gotta really get packing. And until we meet again, hope you guys tune in the next episode where I discuss about IndyCar. I will discuss about IndyCar just for that episode, unless if I decide to go to Laguna and a championship race later this season. But for now, catch you guys later, and hopefully all things go well.